So, I wanted to share with you my thoughts about Maja Chwalińska, her case, and what it shows us about something that I would call toxic humility. And the second thing is sabotage. So, I don't know if you heard about her. She's a Polish tennis player who became pretty much the star at the French Roland Garros, like French competition. She wasn't the first one, but the second. But before this competition even started, she was like in a very, very far place. Like there was pretty much no way that she would be in the final, and she did so. Her performance was so spectacular, and her story is so spectacular. I will briefly share with you a couple of words about it, because I've been fascinated. I'm not really a sports kind of watching person normally, but somewhere I just read her story and I got so inspired and fascinated about her. And I've did my research. I've listened to a couple of interviews. I was reading comments, like what people would talk about her and what she spoke about, like in I believe British TV, and what there were people talking about her in France and obviously in Poland. So for me, she's first of all, she's a person who is totally in her zone. The tennis is her zone. When I heard her story, she started when she was 7, and when the opportunity in her primary school of taking some sport extra classes in tennis came out, I've heard the interview with her first coach that it was like 140 people or something who started in general, who were interested, and after some time, couple of years, she was the very only one person who stayed. She spent lots of her time not only training, playing, but also watching other icons of the 90s or 2000s playing the sport. That's why many people now tell her that she's a very refreshing player, and she plays like old school kind of way, because I think she even named her like a geek of tennis or something like that, something in those lines. So she's really totally into that. It's her that was always her dream to play. And there was a moment when she totally burned out a long time ago, and she even a couple of years ago, I believe, and she was even seriously depressed, like not being able to leave her own room and bed. So that was serious. And even though she managed to recover, and even though she had a break because of that in tennis, and it seemed like she would never come back, she did. And then here we go, this year, coming from nowhere, she was in a far place qualifying for the Roland Garros, and then she had a second place in the end. So all the sport tennis world fell in love with her. A fresh, intelligent. She loves playing chess, way of playing. Her really so really in it. Like you can tell she loves doing that. She's totally into that. So that she's doing that, and actually she said that in some interviews that after the depression, she came back to play just for pleasure, and because she loves doing that, not so much to win. And when it gets interesting is that when I was watching her interviews after Roland Garros, she was like, people would very much praise her humbleness, right? her humbleness. And I remember, I think it was Andrea Agassi, so like the icon of the past, like a very known tennis player, who was complimenting her, and she was something along those lines. She was like, "Oh, I don't know what to how I deserve for that," or something. She was repeatedly saying, you know, that she's grateful, but that she doesn't know why she deserved this and that. And it caught my attention that from one hand, maybe it seems that it's beautiful when people are humble, and she was very much praised for that. But on the other hand, it really got my attention that actually something sticks in here. Like, I just realized that there is something like toxic humbleness, right? Humility, toxic humbleness. Because, like, first of all, I don't like the word deserving, right? Like, how she deserved that she was praised by Andrea. Well, you know, she had an amazing story. Like, so many people I can imagine in her place would just maybe even stay depressed till the end of their lives, not coming back to the sport, which is so, right, challenging. But she did. And what is more, she just do it amazingly. She do it beautifully. She do it in her own style. So, like, why not being liked or praised or, you know, appreciated by that? Especially that people say that she plays in a kind of old school way, which is the way how Andreas or other people who would give her compliments on the interviews would play. So it's like, you know, it's like clear. It's like, it makes sense, right? So it just caught my attention that, like, she was like kind of toxically humble, and I don't want to bitch on her. I don't want to bitch her because I really love her and I love her story and I keep my fingers crossed for her. But, you know, it just stayed with me, this impression after a couple of things that I've heard from her saying, or, you know, knowing also some details about her story. And I know this quality very well. Like, this is something that in this part of the world, like in Poland, we are very much from a long time, like, taught from the early age. And I just wanted to share my thoughts about it, that I believe there is something like toxic humbleness when it's like too much on the other side, right? One side is like narcissistic people, or like, you know, obsessively maybe kind of, you know, taking only themselves always into consideration and everything. But on the other spectrum, there is this toxic humbleness, and I know it is cultural thing, but it's not good. And I actually yesterday, when I just research, I wanted to update myself, like, where she is out, because an important detail is that she received this special card. Is it called a wild card? Because she normally wasn't qualified to Wimbledon, but after the spectacular success that she made at Roland Garros, people were speaking and saying and suggesting, like professionals, that she should have received this special opportunity. There is something like that to make her come to Wimbledon. That was after Roland Garros. So she received that. Okay, that also proves like how spectacular, talented, and good she is at tennis. So it also kind of proves additionally that, you know, her asking herself why she deserved the praise wasn't really aligned, right? But what is even more interesting. I've just learned yesterday that she, and since then I was reflecting on that. Something really happened yesterday. She was playing. Was it yesterday? I mean, yesterday I at least was updated myself with that. So she was playing, I believe, her very first match at Wimbledon, and she was almost there. Like, she almost won. There was like 90% or 90 of the, of her already winning, and then in the very, very last second, she got injured in her, I believe, ankle. And I was like, no. And it was so obvious to me that it was the classical example of self-sabotage, which generally happens in subconscious, right? Because consciously, obviously, she wanted in the end, right, to play the best, and she was playing the best, and to win also probably, like. And in the very, very last second, she got injured and she lost, right? And I was like, this is not only the classical self-sabotage. Do you have examples of this kind from your own life? I have plenty of them, like from professional life. I remember once it happens when, parts of us, like our subconscious, is not in alignment. For those who don't know, who don't know, it happens when these parts of us who are in the subconscious are not in alignment with consciousness, right? So consciously, she probably wanted to do her best and win, and she almost did it, but there must have been some parts of her in the subconscious that don't want to win, like, or are afraid of winning, don't feel like they would deserve winning. Voila. So for me, this first discovery and observation after Roland Garros was like so much in alignment with what happened yesterday, because if she doesn't really feel she deserves some parts of her, and she was even vocalized it in interviews and conversations, then this part of her will not let her win. And then there is this moment when this kind of weird situations, for example, injuries or other stuff happens. I started giving you my example. I remember once I was, and this happens when you obviously want to make some success, some progression, want to step out of your famous comfort zone. The bigger leap is, the more the sabotage can happen, right? The stronger it can be. So for me, I remember a good example was like when I was doing some kind of, I was stepping out of my comfort zone, not like drastically, but partly because I was going to out of the region I was operating in with my services, and I was yoga, meditation, and everything, and it was so funny. Like I remember I just entered the cab because I was taking a train to provide the services, and suddenly, out of the blue, I started to have symptoms of the some kind of throat illness, and it was so unusual in general to me. And also, it just started when I actually literally sat down in the cab, and my service was obviously also working with my voice, because I would provide some services. That was some workshop, and so very often, like, one of the typical scenarios is the injuries and body reactions as a part of as a reflection, as a expression of self-sabotage as a just self-sabotage. So that's, do you have, you and you, do you have your own examples of sabotage? It can happen in so many ways, like you can, your wheel of the car or bike, and suddenly something can happen and you can't, continue the travel, go to the place, like so many possibilities, and the system can not work and you can't process with your payment, and so on and so on. But yeah, so coming back to Maja Chwalińska, it was just a pure example for me. I feel it and see it like that, of self-sabotage that happened. It was just in the very, very end. She was almost there. She almost won. And for me, again, coming back to the previous discoveries, it was like a clear connection to, because for sure there must have been in her subconscious, if she self-sabotaged, and for me it seems that she did, there must have been in her subconscious some reasons for that, something that is not in alignment and doesn't want and is scared or don't feel that deserve like winning in her case. So for me it was like a beautiful observation. Obviously it's not what I wish for her, but everything came like together, clicked together. My first observation of her probably not appreciating herself enough or feeling that she doesn't deserve that, and the self-sabotage, it makes total sense to me.